Welcome to the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. This is your podcast for all things hockey. On this podcast, we talk about past history to the modern day and what you can do to grow the sport. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. Welcome in to episode 37 of the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. So we had a lot happen over before we took the NHL break. Ovechkin got 802 goals, and Crosby got his 19th of the year. And these two just are always going back and forth between point totals. If you had to ask me, of course, I actually think that Crosby will have more points in his career, maybe by 100 or 200. So it's very up in the air, and he may be the next one to get 2,000 points. The rivalry between Ovechkin and Crosby on who's the better player has always been up in the air. Now, personally, I actually think both of them are better than Wayne Gretzky, and here's why. Wayne Gretzky didn't have to play through the butterfly era. He played against goaltenders like Dominik Hasek, who never had to learn it, or Mike Richter never had to learn it. Ron Hextall never had to learn it. He played Grant Fuhr, his teammate, never had to learn it at all. McLean of the Vancouver Canucks never had to learn it. And Jim Craig never had to learn. Like you go down the list, so many goalies never had to learn it. Billy Smith never had to learn it too. Now when Crosby and Ovechkin entered the league, you were coming out of the stand-up era of goaltenders. Very few were still doing that when they entered, and it was post-lockout when they came in. And after that, they whatever stand-up goalie was there, whatever stand-up goalies were there, like maybe a handful at the most, they seemed to adjust well. Because they came in at the right time where they could adjust and go up against goalies with bigger pads and in a butterfly style that could get a goalie from pipe to pipe and take away some goals other than it traditionally would have been had you been in the stand-up era. On who's the better player between Crosby and Ovechkin, I always grew up thinking that it was Crosby, and this is coming from an Alex Ovechkin fan too, so keep that in mind. Sidney Crosby is the much better playmaker. He is the much better passer. He's the much better receiver of the puck too. So that also makes it a key difference as well. Now he's got 500 plus goals, and he's got over 916 assists. So I think he could possibly wind up with, he could easily get to 700 goals. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Maybe he could have a 50-goal season too, as well as Ovechkin too. So there's that. I do think that Ovechkin's gonna pass Gretzky at some point. Now, Sidney Crosby is not gonna pass Wayne Gretzky in point total. He's not going to do that. However, I do think he will have about 2,000 points if he plays past his age 40 season. And also keep this in mind with Sidney Crosby. He was injured quite a bit growing up, and that certainly hurt him. There were a few seasons where he did not play 82 games, and he's had like 120 point seasons before as well too. So So do the math on that too. Think about that in this era of the butterfly era, that he's had many 100-point errors. I'm actually going to pull up that on Hockey Reference in a moment. Let's talk about Ovechkin, and let's go back to my prediction with him on the 50 goals. It looks like he's on pace to do that. He's got 22 goals already. He's got 22 goals already, and it's just incredible what he's done. Yeah, so he has won 120-point season. He's got a few already in with that, and he's got yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. I'm gonna pull up my my screen and share this real quickly with you all and optimize for video. That's why I like Zoom. Okay, so let's take a look here. So in his first 2 seasons, he's already got 100. He's already got 100, 222 points in his first 2 seasons, and then he didn't play much there, and I do think that was a shame there. Gets 103 points with 77 games too. 109. Then he's got, and then he's like dealing with some injuries around this time, and then 104 points with 80 games. That was pretty high at the time. And then he's only had one 100-point season after that at his age 31 season. Now, games played, so we're still about. I don't think. Okay, hold on a minute. Yeah, we have. Yeah, so yeah, it looks like he could be on pace for about 100 right now. So there's that. 43. Yeah, it looks like that. Now, keep in mind, if he gets another 48 points this year, he doesn't necessarily have to get 100 points this year to break 1,500. And he's got a plus minus of 206. That's insane. If he gets another 48 points, he's at 1,500 this year. That's insane. And if we go look at Mr. Ovechkin, 1 point behind Crosby. And I'm telling you, like they will switch off every now and then. They'll have like either Ovechkin or Crosby will find themselves in a rut and just not be able to produce the same way. Now, Alex Ovechkin is a little older, and that's why I keep saying that he's not going. Well, unless he plays to age 42, which is also possible as well. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities as well. But he comes into the league at age 20. And remember, had we not had the 2004-2005 lockout season, had that never occurred, he probably would have been at 1,600 already. He could have easily been at 1,600 already. Let's take a look at these point totals here. He has not produced and this is why I think Crosby's a little better, because Crosby had more seasons with over 100 points, and Ovechkin played more games than he did in the same time frame. They never, as well, he was not injured as much as Crosby was, which makes a huge difference. So if anything, I think Sidney Crosby is better. And this is like, and once again, this is coming from a Capitals fan / Ovechkin fan. It's still incredible what they could do. And both of them are once in a generation players. Both of them are. Gretzky is not the best. And And I was at a party last night, and 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 I was talking to hockey with this guy, and he said Wayne Gretzky is the best hockey player of all time. And I'm like, dude, just shut your mouth. He is not. He did not have to go through what Crosby and Ovechkin had to. The game got much faster. The goalies, once again, we went into the butterfly era. I tell this guy, and when we went into the butterfly era, there were a lot less goals scored because they were so good, and it was really hard for players like Jeremy Roenick to adjust to that, or Mike Modano to adjust to that, when it started to come about as well. Even the goalies had to adjust to that as well. And he didn't have to play against pads. The goalies were like 30, 40, 50 feet out on the net, just trying to block someone and just trying to be a player and just like slide on their side. And it's incredible. You can't do that in beer league now. And people want me to say that he's the greatest of all time. He did not have to come in to go through all that to get 215 points a year. He didn't have to go through the same training as Gretzky. Gretzky did not have to go through the same training as Ovechkin and Crosby to get to where they are today. And Wayne Gretzky could have easily not had a 51 game point streak as well. There's so many records that he probably doesn't get as well. And he could spend like 10 seconds on a play and behind the opposing goalie's net. You can't do that nowadays. You can't. And the game has changed so much. It's been more demanding. And what could you say about Gretzky? That he played with a wooden stick as well, and his shot was not as hard as like Zdeno Chara as well. It couldn't be that hard because he wasn't playing with a composite stick. Yeah, you can make that argument. They were playing with wooden sticks up until the 90s. Yes, but also you see him get beat. You see him get defeated too. Patrick Waugh once deked around him as well, and he struggled against goalies like when Patrick Waugh and Brodeur came in and were starting to develop that, and he was in his early 30s when he had to face it too, which shows you that this era that was coming about really was, the defining era. We're not going to go back to stand-up style ever again. And Glenn Hall was the first to implement that back in the 50s, but but that was like just, a bloop on the radar back in the 50s and early 60s when he was doing what he was doing. And to have the flexibility back then was tough. And there were definitely goalies, there were definitely players that were doing that were able to get it around him as well. And when they were, and also speaking of the butterfly, when they were shooting Miracle for Tretiak and Vej, oh my goodness, Mishkevitz, I think, or Mishkiv, Mishkevitz, that sounds Jewish. Mishiv, they had to make sure that whoever was, their stunt doubles or whoever was in there doing what they were doing had to do the butterfly in, the early 2000s when they were filming this. And there was still NHL goalies doing stand-up style. And it's hilarious, but it's not comedy. That's good. Now who does Now let's talk about their teammates, Crosby and Ovechkin's. Crosby had Malkin, Chris Letang, Jordan Staal, and arguably one of the best goalies of this generation, Marc-Andre Fleury, and then he went to the Golden Knights for a little bit, and to think that he, in and of himself, got to play in a Stanley Cup final 3 times in a row is insane. So he goes to Vegas as well. Now, then he winds up in Chicago last year, and then he goes to Minnesota. Now he's in Minnesota. He's 38 years old, and I don't know if he's going to be the greatest of all time. He's got 532 career wins. We're going to go and see how far he has to go against someone like Marty Brodeur. And Martin Brodeur has 691 wins. I don't think he's beating that unless he goes into his age 42 season and he has some really hot years as well. Does it work against him? Does it work in his favor? Let's see here. Does it work in his favor? So Crosby had arguably one of the best of this generation, even though Brodeur played a little bit in his era as well, and up until about 2014. So it's a bit unsure too. With that, Jordan Staal had some good years as well. Chris Letang is still doing okay for the most part. So it's been the Malkin show with him as well. And Letang and Staal were his guys. Ovechkin has Backstrom as well, and he's the assist king. When they got TJ Oshie in the later part of the 2017-2018 season, that certainly helped them propel them past the Golden Knights to win that Stanley Cup as well. And that was enough for them. If you go back to the playoffs, for the Stanley Cup Finals in 2009, it came down to the wire, but Crosby always beat out the Capitals, and the Capitals just never seemed to get past the Penguins until 2018. And the only reason the Penguins didn't beat the Caps that time was because Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't there. But you take a look at their playoff games, going head to head, Crosby and Ovechkin. It's insane what they were doing. They definitely made hockey better, and it was the greatest, and it is the greatest rivalry currently in the NHL between those two, at least when it comes to players. You could say that the Battle of Alberta is a better rivalry, but I think when it comes to players, at least, Crosby and Ovechkin certainly are the best. And then you could argue, okay, well, who's a better player of the next generation that's coming up, Matthews or McDavid? But I don't think they're going to hold a candle to the stats that Ovi and Crosby will finish with. I don't think they will get to 2,000 points. We're probably not going to see another 2,000-point player again. Gretzky is the only one so far, and had Yager not gone off to Europe, I think we would have seen him get to 2,000 as well. So, and Ovechkin and Crosby are the next. I've got to get about 548 points and 549 points to get to 2,000. That's going to be a very big stretch for Ovechkin. Crosby could certainly find a way to do it if he plays to his age 42 season. But that would be a long stretch as well. To get to 2,000 points is insane. And I don't think, and if either one of them gets to 2,000 points, they should be in, they should just get unanimous votes in, and they shouldn't have to go through the waiting period. Here's a good rule that we should absolutely take. No matter who you are, no matter how many cups or Art Ross trophies or Conn Smythes you won, if you have hit 2,000 points, and even if you haven't even made the finals, automatic induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't think that's unreasonable. And I think even still, if they don't reach 2,000 points, I'll put them in, get them past the waiting period because of, both of their milestones as well. Sidney Crosby will not have the most amount of goals or the most amount of assists of all time. And that's all right. That's all right. It's fine. But he's going to have he'll probably wind up with the second most amount of points. And if he gets past, if he has like 1964 in points, I think that's going to be still pretty good after all of it. He is by far the greatest. I do think he might be the greatest of all time. Like one of these two. And I even said, and let's go back to Mario Lemieux. Mario Lemieux was injured a lot, and he almost had 700 goals. And he certainly could have beaten Howe and Gretzky if it wasn't for his injuries. Who knows what would have happened? Could have been a very interesting time as well if he was always in his tip-top condition and then made it to Crosby's era and passed the torch off to him. I don't think Crosby would have beaten him too. So there's still a lot of factors to determine who the greatest player of all time is. But in terms of the butterfly era so far, I'll say that you can put Ovechkin and Crosby as the best in this era of who's going to get 1,000 assists. I mean, Crosby's going to be the first to do that as well. And it's insane too. I mean, it's hard enough to get points in this era because of the goalie style and the game pace and all that. And I think even with one like Steven Stamkos or eventually Phil Kessel, when he reaches 1,000 points, it should get you into the Hockey Hall of Fame because no one's getting points anymore. But Ovechkin and Crosby worked their what's off and just kept going. They just kept going too. And for Sidney Crosby to still have more points and play in less games than Ovechkin and be 1 year younger, I think that says that he's the better player too. After all of this, and to be able to just be able to get above Ovechkin and be a year younger and have less games played under your belt shows how much Sidney Crosby is a better player overall because of his assists and playmaking ability. And I guess his plus minus ratio as well during that time. Oh, wow. What a morning for me. Okay, so this should come out at about noon. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you can go over to Substack for free. Subscribe there for free, or you can pay me $5 and you'll get access to all the paid articles, bonus episodes as well, and videos as well. But I'm going to put out this episode on video. I'll try something new. So rothsteina.substack.com. Go there. If you're on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to this, please rate this 5 stars. Write me a little review. I want to know what you think of this podcast, and just tell me. And also, please share this with your friends and family, because this is the best hockey podcast you could possibly ask for. So, with that being said, stay safe, stay great, and I'll talk to you all in the next episode. Take care.